Today I'll be talking about Itto and discussing some of the misconceptions people have about him, while also slightly touching upon his relationship with Kuki Shinobu and how misconstrued it is and why some people may not like him as a character. Arataki Itto is an Oni from the Arataki Clan. Him and his parents used to live together with humans until one day, a robbery occurred in the village they lived in. Due to their Oni lineage, his family was under suspicion and had to leave the village. His parents later died to an illness, leaving young Itto homeless and alone. He would also regularly get beaten up by the people around him because whenever someone would make fun of Onis, he'd fight them, and being a homeless child with no food, he wasn't particularly strong. One day, an old woman found him and took him under her care, dubbing her Grandma Oni. It is implied that she faces some criticism and hate for raising an Oni child, which is something Itto feels really bad about, saying he doesn't care if people don't like him, but they shouldn't take it out on Grandma Oni. As many years passed, the reputation of Onis, while getting slightly better, is still relatively shaky, and he plans on fixing that, allowing Onis and humans to live together without prejudice and without anyone having to sacrifice themselves like the Blue Oni. He created the Arataki gang as a place to welcome fellow delinquents, fellow sort of banished members of society. Him and his gang spend their days roasting lavender melons, playing games with kids, and battling with beetles, a common pastime in Japanese culture. And whenever they would run out of money, they do a myriad of odd jobs to get themselves some money, and with the addition of Kuki Shinobu into their team and her many certifications, the different types of odd jobs they could do increased. Can I just say, Itto has to be one of the most expressive characters in all of Genshin. His voice, his body language, his vocabulary, his banter with Paimon is some of the best in-game. We need more banter like this in-game that isn't just I'll hate them and Kave arguing. Max Middleman, I think that's his name, sorry if I'm pronouncing his last name wrong, is an amazing voice actor, and I don't think they could have chosen a better person to voice him. I love his voice so much. Let's get into the misconceptions. He only cares about himself. Itto's aloofness sometimes makes him seem like he doesn't think about others, but Itto is a character that puts others first, and his dream is to make the people around him happy. He made the Arataki gang as a way for people who are not looked upon in society well to have a place to belong. Yes, he can be goofy at times, but he doesn't have bad intentions with what he does, but rather he doesn't think hard enough about what he does. He plays with kids and sees them as his equals. He offered us a spot in the gang and promised to stop us from sacrificing ourselves if that day ever comes. He took 3 days and 3 nights to get us the perfect Oni Kabuto on our birthday and sang us a song. During his story quest, not only did he try to take the blame for the Blue Oni so that the Tenryou Commission wouldn't take him to jail, he also told the Blue Oni that after he is released from prison, he can join the Arataki gang, and offered to take care of the Blue Oni's clan while he was in prison. Let's not forget that when he thought Kuki Shinobu was leaving, despite being upset about her no longer being with them, he was fully supportive of her endeavors. During one of the Beetle events, he proclaimed that he would pay for the education of everyone in the Arataki gang to study in Liyue and make their lives better. Is he slightly delusional and doesn't think too far into the future? Absolutely. Is he selfish, however? No. All his flaws make him a more interesting person, or Oni in this case. Rather than having a perfect character that does everything right, a character that makes mistakes is a lot more interesting to watch grow. There's a problem though, they have to actually grow. While Itto's current personality is amusing, it would be interesting to see him in more serious situations like during his story quest, and watch him grow to be a more mature and educated individual without making him dull and boring by removing his goofy side. I love his goofy side. I just want to see his serious side a bit more. Itto is capable of being mature and serious if the situation requires him to be. We see that in his story quest. It's just MiHoYo doesn't really place him in situations where he's allowed to be serious. He's been reduced to comic relief for a very long time, and it's getting slightly aggravating, honestly. Next misconception would be he doesn't care about or respect Kuki Shinobu. Kuki Shinobu is the gang's second in command. She's in charge of basically all the technical stuff, but primarily getting the gang out of trouble whenever they land themselves in jail. This specific part of her relationship with Itto is what most people scrutinize the most, saying that Itto doesn't respect her and that she shouldn't be in the gang. With the way certain people refer to their relationship, you'd think she was his mom, or worse, he was forcing her to stay with them. Kuki Shinobu has her own reasons for staying with the gang. She's perfectly capable of leaving if she wants to. For all the trouble she has to get them out of, they repay her with respect and unrelenting love and affection. Shinobu comes from a long line of shrine maidens, but she abandoned that life to find a job with freedom, a job where she can be whatever she wants to be, and that job is being the deputy of the Arataki gang. Even in real life, the people we love aren't always going to be perfect human beings who never do anything wrong, but you don't just drop people because they have some flaws. Those flaws make them human, and as long as the love you have for them outweighs the flaws, then what's the problem? Itto and the gang obviously care for Shinobu a lot, and she them. Despite having to knock some sense into them a few times, they care for her greatly, like a family. Itto had a rough childhood, being discriminated against, something he still sometimes deals with. Whenever he goes to jail, it's not always because he's doing something bad or he's being a nuisance. Sometimes it's just because the Tenryou Commission still discriminates against Onis. Kuki has a rough family situation, so she's obviously going to defend the only other family she has fervently. Both of them have something missing that the other completes. Kuki gives them structure, and Itto and the gang gives her reassurance and a place to be herself. And I also believe MiHoYo has kind of watered down their relationship to Itto does dumb shit, Kuki Shinobu cleans up her mess, when there's a lot more to them than that. Kind of like how Itto is almost always relegated to the comic relief, the idiot of a situation. Kuki Shinobu has been relegated to the person who cleans up his messes, which is also annoying. Itto's story quest did a good job of establishing his personality, the two sides of his personality, his goofy side and his serious side, and it's kind of a shame they haven't shown us that side of him ever again. He has been relegated to comic relief for so long, I think people have forgotten the Itto from the story quest. And Kuki Shinobu could have been a lot more than just the person who cleans up his mess. They are a lot more than that, but MiHoYo doesn't seem to want to go into that side of their relationship. At the end of the day, he seems like a cool guy, so why don't people like him? MiHoYo and the community has a habit of reducing characters into one or two traits rather than expanding upon them, which leaves characters like Itto to be shoved into a box to play the same role over and over and over again like a sick puppet show without any development. Itto's real personality shows well during his story quest and the Chasm quest, even though the Chasm quest kind of has a weird writing in some parts where he's like a little more dumb than usual, but whatever, where despite still being his silly, goofy self, he was still able to be serious when the situation required him to be. But the event quests, while fun and enjoyable, just ruin his character because he is usually just silly and goofy, that's it. He rarely shows his serious and responsible side during events. There is so much more to him that Hoyo just decides not to explore, and as someone who enjoys him, it is disappointing to see. He also had like 3 or 4 events way too close to each other, which made people get sick of him because usually when Itto is the main character of an event, that means he's going to be the only one that actually gets to do anything. And other playable characters, either other than Kuki Shinobu, who by the way they have reduced to just being his babysitter at this point, don't really get any screen time. Unlike Sino, who also had a moment when he had a lot of events close to each other, he at least appears with other characters instead of just him. He isn't taking away from other characters because they're allowed to show up with him. Every time we get an Itto-centric event, that is another update that could have been used to develop other characters, which will eventually aggravate people, especially those that don't like his personality at all or have characters that haven't appeared in forever. As an Ayato main, we get the short end of the stick. Hell, we don't even get a stick at all. I don't remember the last time this man had more than 10 minutes of screen time. I was excited for the Fontanellium Film Festival because I thought they could actually let him breathe for once. But no, we get Ayaka making friends instead, which I am happy for her. But geez, I would rather watch Ayato and Nibulet talk about politics if that is what it takes to see him on screen. Please, they can like replace all the Itto-centric events with Inazuma events where we get to see most if not all the Inazuma cast, and that would be so much better because then they get to expand upon Inazuma's lore, Inazuma's character's lore, and it won't just be Itto. They can have a subsection like a mini game for his Beetle stuff. I don't mind the Beetle events, I actually find them really fun, but him being the main character or the central focal point of an event is getting kind of watered down. Itto events are rarely bad, like don't get me wrong, they can make like 100 of them and I'd enjoy every single last of them, but it's understandable why people would get sick and tired of seeing him after a while. They rarely mess up his events, but it's just a funny event, that's all it is. It's like Itto events are funny, and that is all they are. And for all the funniness and enjoyability that his events tend to have, it's also kind of disappointing that that's all he ever will be. At the end of the day, some people just don't like Itto because of how silly he is, and that's fine. There are a bunch of mature, serious characters in Genshin. Pretty sure most Genshin characters are some version of mature and serious, so you're not really starved for characters. Honestly, I feel like we need more comic relief goofy characters to take the pressure off of Itto. Because if MiHoYo wants to make comic relief events, that's fine. but use other characters, or people are gonna get sick and tired of seeing the same dude be silly and goofy over and over and over again. And what are your thoughts on Itto? And for how serious Genshin's lore tends to be and how dark everything is, it's nice to have a comic relief once in a while. Anyways, that is all I have for today. Subscribe and see you whenever.